I am Don Tess, better known as the Don of Beer.
And I'm Em Sutter, better known as Pints and Panels.
Welcome to episode 86 of the All About Beer podcast. Every 2 weeks, we talk with leading experts and take a deep dive into one topic in beer. This week on the show, we are going to talk about distilling beer. But first, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And visit allaboutbeer.com/support to support this show and others. Speaking of supporting this show, it's almost the end of the year, and we are actively seeking sponsors to help us pay for producing this show through 2026. If you're interested in reaching thoughtful brewers and curious beer drinkers through advertising, or if you know someone who is, please email us at podcast@allaboutbeer.com. To produce a good show, we limit the number of advertising slots available, so please reach out soon. So, Em, I've known you for a while, but I actually don't know. Do you like whiskey?
What? What a crazy question. Of course I love whiskey. I love bourbon.
Oh,
Bourbon and wedding cake is the move.
like this is a pairing that you like?
Yes, this is my favorite food and drink pairing of all time.
Really?
Yes, is bourbon and wedding cake. It's really, really good because the complements of sugar, especially most nicer weddings will have makers, and the makers and wedding cake is just
Ah.
give it a try. Cake and bourbon are any bourbon and sweets, to be honest. Whiskey and sweet like cookies. It's a really lovely after dinner. One
Isn't
cube.
bourbon already too sweet?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Well,
dumb
Don, yeah.
comment.
Yeah, Don, we know that you love whiskey, so I'm sure you're
I
really
do love whiskey.
excited about this episode.
Yeah, I am. I'm excited about all of our episodes, to be
Fair.
honest.
Fair.
But yeah, I am very excited. But first, if you would like to help support the All About Beer podcast, please reach out to podcast@allaboutbeer.com. Speaking of supporting the show, here's a word from our sponsors.
This program is brought to you by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, where trailblazing runs in the family. From crafting a movement with their iconic pale ale to taking the IPA haze craze nationwide with Hazy Little Thing, it's an adventurous spirit you can taste in every sip. Find your next favorite beer wherever fine beverages are sold. With new brews for every season, there's always something to discover. Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. Still family owned, operated, and argued over.
New Hampshire knows great beer, and the New Hampshire Brewers Association is here to lift it up. With nearly 100 craft breweries statewide, the NHBA promotes, educates, and advocates for the brewers who make the state one of my very favorite beer destinations. Grab the NH Beer Trail Passport and unlock exclusive perks at select member breweries from the Great North Woods to the Seacoast. Plan a weekend, find hidden gems, and support the local breweries that make New Hampshire beer special. Learn more at nhbrewers.org.
Upon returning from a bit of travel where he discovered that beer came in more than just one flavor, Garrett Haynes became a curious homebrewer. After about 10 years of trying on different jobs with beer brewing as a spare time hobby, he decided to flip the script and make beer his career. He was able to enroll in the first year of the brand new brewing program at Olds College in Alberta. Fresh out of school, he had the great fortune to become the first hired employee at Troubled Monk Brewery in Red Deer, Alberta, where he immediately stepped into the role of head brewer. For the last 10 years, he has been brewing, packaging, and designing recipes for beer, craft sodas, and ready-to-drink cocktails. In 2017, Troubled Monk began distilling, making whiskey under the Grainhenge brand, and he has been busy working on their award-winning spirits as the head distiller as well. Welcome to the show, Garrett.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Okay, so at its most basic core, whiskey is distilled beer. So all whiskey is effectively distilled beer. But with your beer brewing background, how do you maybe think differently about how you make whiskey versus, say a regular bourbon or a regular scotch?
Well, before we even purchased our still, we kind of brainstormed on what that would look like for us. And we knew that we had years of expertise with all of the same ingredients and equipment for making beer. And we wanted to make sure that we continued that story with our spirit program. So we actually basically use our beers as inspiration for making our whiskeys. I'll use similar malts and basically take a recipe that I'd use for a beer, think about what malt character I want to amplify, and then use that to write my wash or beer recipe for the whiskey.
And that you find that does actually translate through?
Absolutely. when I was first learning about distilling, I had a lot of people who'd been distilling a while just talk about the ingredients as getting the most alcohol for as little money as possible. Uh, but then they would get really romantic about things like what water they used. And I was like, hold on, why are we just glossing over the malt? That's got to have an impact. And the more we experiment with it, the more we find that it does, and in a really positive way.
Um, and are you finding like, okay, so everybody who listens to this show is a beer lover, and they would maybe know what Munich malt tastes like, just as an example. If you make a whiskey from a wash made with Munich malt, is that a one-to-one?
It's
Uh,
definitely not the same flavor that you'd be getting out of a beer with a high amount of Munich malt, but it definitely is different than just using our straight base malt. So our whiskey elevator row is inspired by pesky pig. So it's our base two row malt barley plus a good dose of Munich malt. And the Munich malt in the beer kind of gives you that quintessential maltiness. When I describe malt, I'm usually describing something similar to Munich, but there's kind of like a nutty, bready, biscuity character to the Munich malt. And I find it actually provides some of that in the whiskey, but also a little bit of fruitiness comes out of it as well. Uh,
Hmm.
and the more we kind of sat around with that, I decided to start pushing how much Munich we use, and I've actually made whiskeys using 100% Munich malt, uh,
oh,
and and that worked really well. Hopefully, we'll be releasing one of those in short order.
Is
save me a
the
bottle.
yeah, is the fruitiness that comes from the Munich malt, is that because of the distillation process on top of it, or
It's
is there something else I'm missing?
well, when we like, I taste my products at every stage from chewing on the grains before they get ground up to what goes into the stills. So I know that there's a different flavor from a Munich wash versus a two-row wash. Uh, and then once I start distilling, I can see how those changes continue to come through the still, and I can adjust on the fly how I make my cuts to emphasize the flavors that I want as well.
Hmm.
Very cool. So as a brewer, you've earned a World Beer Cup medal, and as a distiller, recently you were awarded the best rye in the world from the World Whiskey Awards.
That's
So
correct.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is the key to this success? Was it your success as a brewer being key to your success as a distiller, or is there something else?
I definitely think that our knowledge as brewers helped, but also the way we approach things as brewers. Uh, when we started making a rye whiskey, I was actually against it at first. I didn't want to produce another Canadian rye whiskey that basically did really high distillation of a kind of a commodity grain and then adding some rye to it to give it that rye flavor. Is like, if we're gonna go rye, I want to go 100% rye, and I want to showcase the grain
Hmm.
and talk about the malt. So that was from the very beginning what our rye was setting out to do to differentiate itself. And having used it in the brew house, I was familiar with using both flaked and malted versions of rye, and I wanted to use kind of some of each to create our recipe. So I think it really started from the brew side to make this whiskey what it was.
Okay, so sorry, you flaked and what kind of rye?
Flaked and malted.
Flaked and malted, and that makes a difference. Like, I guess I'm kind of amazed that these are making. I would have thought that the differences in these flavors are fairly subtle in the beer, and then when you distill it, does that negate that difference, or does it actually amplify that difference?
It can amplify it. So not only when I write the recipe am I taking that into consideration, but the way we fermented that one, keeping it at a lower temperature, so I didn't kind of drive that spiciness that rye is known for too far. I find that if I let the fermentations run amok and get really hot, I amplify that spiciness. But if I can constrain
Oh,
that, I get more of the sweetness. There's like a candy note to rye that I really love. So
oh,
controlling our fermentation made sure that I had more of that so that when I got through the distillation process, that was still there for me to then age in the barrel.
Are you relatively unique in the whiskey world in caring about fermentation temperature too, or is that a common thing that,
I think it's
Jim Beam
becoming
cares about?
more common. People are starting to realize just how much that can affect things. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Fascinating. I love this. Okay, you touched upon, why you were sort of initially opposed to rye. And one of the things, I live in Canada, I live in Alberta. We're not famous for our whiskey, and to the extent we are, it's not high quality whiskey. Scotland's famous for Scotch, America's famous for bourbon. So you're in Alberta, you could have done anything. You could have emulated Scotch, you could have emulated bourbon. How do you, when the sky is the limit, when you have a blank canvas, how do you decide what you're going to do?
Our initial approach was to not decide, and we've kind of dabbled in just about everything. So I have made corn whiskey, I've made some whiskey in the same traditional methods that you'd use for Scotch whiskey. But it's all with a little bit of our own take as brewers. So being more mindful of the grain we use, the fermentation process, and it's not just about creating alcohol and then distilling it to concentrate it. It's about, yeah, we think about it as beer and wash first, and it's all decisions we make starting at the beginning that we hope differentiate our whiskey and can try and create a conversation about Alberta and Canadian whiskey.
Is there one that you were like, that's the best one to do? Like, is there something that was like the most fun to use malt to create since you do have a blank canvas?
So I've been experimenting with chocolate rye. One of the local
Hmm.
maltsters is making a wonderful chocolate rye. So taking the same approach that we used for our 100% rye whiskey and then introducing a chocolate version of it and seeing just how much comes through. Uh, that's a project that's got me very excited. It's not legally whiskey yet, but I'm
Hmm.
pretty happy for how it's come along with the age that it is.
Hmm.
And then from a marketing and sales perspective, how do you try to position your whiskey? Because it's under a different brand than beer. There's Troubled Monk versus Granehenge. Do you want your beer fans to follow you over to whiskey and then, or are you just trying to separate them so there's separate, the purpose of the separate branding, that's intentional? And if so, it's got to be actually. If so, why?
It is intentional. We wanted to give the whiskey a brand all its own, just to show that
Mhm,
we were giving it that much care and attention. It wasn't just an afterthought product added
mhm.
on to the Troubled Monk brand. So we have taken that approach with it, but we also want all of our beer fans to at least experiment with us and try some of the whiskey. So we've got some crossover products where our Meeting Creek whiskey is inspired by our Open Road Brown Ale. So I take those same dark malts to make the whiskey, and then I was able to, once I'd taken the whiskey out of the barrel, put the Open Road Brown Ale into that barrel and do a barrel aged version of it. So for Christmas, we'll have a box that has both the beer and the whiskey that are all kind of playing with each other, so that our beer fans can kind of make that leap over to the whiskey with us.
Have you done that before with other, or is this the first time you've done that where the beer and the whiskey are kind of in a package deal?
We have done it before with the same beer and whiskey, just taking it a little further now. Um, yeah, it's something that I hope to continue with because I love that story. And again, that was a concept we had before we even started distilling. It's like we have this opportunity to bring everything full circle within our own business.
And then, so how has the approach been with your beer drinkers? Are they loving your whiskey, or are you bringing in whiskey drinkers who are like, "Oh wow, your beer's great."
I think it's going a little bit both ways, but
Nice.
definitely we've been around longer making beer, so we've got more beer fans to try and win over with the whiskey, and I think it's going quite well. Being able to offer that in our tap room when they come in, see a list of beers, but they can also try some whiskey that we made as well.
Nice.
Um, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I apologize for making you backtrack, Garrett, but I've been thinking about how these flavors go through, into this spirit, the what do you call it? The new make, and then into the barrels. And Obviously, barrels impact flavor as well. Um, but in terms of, using those specialty grains and controlling your fermentation temperature and those affecting the flavor of the finished whiskey, is it how does is the distillation just simply concentration of congeners and such, or are there Maillard reactions happening? Or of course the still is copper, so it's removing sulfur. Like what's the magic?
Yeah, there is definitely some magic going on there, and most of our distillation, because we're set up for making beer, we're making a like a clear wash. It's not got the grain still in it, but I have
Okay.
done some experiments in other stills where we've had the grain present during distillation, and there are definitely flavor reactions that happen just because of that. I find that fascinating as well. Uh, yeah, I think the still what kind of a still you're running and how you're running it can definitely affect the flavor. It's not just concentrating the alcohol. You're kind of selecting or driving certain flavors, I think, with your equipment and how you use it.
Okay. Cool.
And what kind of equipment do you guys use? Are you using a pot still or like a continu like what what do you use? And then I guess the my follow-up is like what would you like on your wish list? What do you wish you had that would like bring your whiskey and everything to the next level?
Right now we have it's a 500-liter electric still. So
Okay,
it's basically got a jacket on the outside that's electrically heated. And so it kind of indirectly heating the liquid inside the still.
got it.
And we're running it as a pot still, but we can change the column and run it as
Oh,
a
okay.
column
Oh,
still as well.
nice.
Uh, yeah, so we are doing basically what's a low wines run. So
Hmm.
we'll put the wash in at between 6 and 8% usually, and do a low wine run, bringing that up into the 30s. And then once we've collected enough low wines, we'll run it again, a spirit run, which
Even the same
becomes our
still.
whiskey. Yeah,
I see.
yeah. In a perfect world, I'd have two stills, a low wine still and a spirit still, so I don't have to kind of do everything in batches. But that just takes up more room. So
And more money.
that's right.
And then I guess that my last question is, what advice would you give to a brewery looking to get into distilling?
I would say that there's a lot of information out there that's kind of dated, so trust
Mm,
your gut and your experience. If you
Well,
know how to make good beer, you can make good whiskey. Uh, Everything is important from the ingredients to the fermentation. It all matters.
awesome.
nice.
I love that.
Me too.
Thank you, Garrett. Really appreciate your time.
Ah, you're welcome.
This is
I'm happy
great.
to be here.
Thank you
This is
for
fun.
educating us. Yeah, cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.
And we'll be right back with Brad Morgan of Virginia Distillery Company and American Custom Distilling after a word from our sponsors.
New Hampshire knows great beer, and the New Hampshire Brewers Association is here to lift it up. With nearly 100 craft breweries statewide, the NHBA promotes, educates, and advocates for the brewers who make the state one of my very favorite beer destinations. Grab the NH Beer Trail Passport and unlock exclusive perks at select member breweries from the Great North Woods to the Seacoast. Plan a weekend, find hidden gems, and support the local breweries that make New Hampshire beer special. Learn more at nhbrewers.org.
This program is brought to you by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, where trailblazing runs in the family. From crafting a movement with their iconic pale ale to taking the IPA haze craze nationwide with Hazy Little Thing, it's an adventurous spirit you can taste in every sip. Find your next favorite beer wherever fine beverages are sold. With new brews for every season, there's always something to discover. Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, still family owned, operated, and argued over.
Brad Morgan is the supply chain director for Virginia Distillery Company and American Custom Distilling. He oversees the organization's logistics planning, inventory management, and shipping receiving. Brad previously worked at Anheuser-Busch InBev in management roles across supply chain and brewing operations. He received his BS in mechanical engineering from Kansas State University. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I'm not that familiar with your distillery, but I understand you take American single malt and then you finish it in former beer casks. I know at least one you used Goose Island Bourbon County casks. So
Correct.
what do all these things do? Like, can you actually taste the beer? I guess I'm thinking that the beer would be overpowered by the whiskey taste. So what does the beer do to the whiskey? And then,
Yeah.
of course, sorry to interrupt you. In the case of
No,
the Bourbon County, those casks also formerly held bourbon. And does like that bourbon come through into the beer? And then does that beer come through into your single malt, et cetera, et cetera?
for sure. Yeah, yeah. So as you mentioned, we're an American single malt whiskey distillery located in Livingston, Virginia, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And yeah, that's what we've done since were founded and started distilling in 2015. So we've been at it for quite a while. And it was officially ratified this year, which was super exciting for us, something we've been pushing for since we started this process. But we last year decided to come back with this Brewers Coalition series, which is what we're discussing here. And basically, that's what we do. Yeah, we take stout barrels from breweries across the country. And we take them after they, freshly take their stout out of them, get them to our distillery as quickly as possible, and then refill it with our 5-year-old American single malt. So what you're tasting in those finished products is we do a 5-year maturation ourselves in an ex-bourbon barrel, because everything we do is typically used wood that we go into with our single malt. So it's 5 years aged in ex-bourbon barrels, and then we go into the beer barrel. And with that, we've done partnerships with Goose Island, we've done partnerships with Boulevard, and Hardywood Brewery in Richmond. But it's really amazing. We started with those three, and I think we couldn't have picked a better three just because of how different they are, despite all being stout cast finishes. Because you do take on a lot of the different notes from the beer, both from the aroma and from the palate. But they all three were so different that it turned out really well, and they're all very differentiated releases.
How long
Oh,
are they staying in the beer barrel?
Yeah, so we
Are they
typically we shoot for about a year,
okay?
but we really let the whiskey tell us when it's ready. They all vary so much because we get them so fresh that you really start to taste notes pretty immediately from the beer itself. It starts to impart itself on the whiskey.
Hmm.
So we monitor it closely when we get to the finishing phase. We're checking in every couple months just to see how things are progressing because things can also turn, which we don't want to do. So we monitor it closely and pull it, but we typically aim for around a year of finishing.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah.
you mentioned like the before the finishing, it's 5 years in used oak. Is there magic to that 5 years, or is that just what you found works?
Yeah, it's just that's kind of where our stock's at right now. And it is, it's a very matured whiskey to be finishing. But we feel that it brings a huge quality to the table. We've seen it in the point scores for these brewers releases. Hardywood Gingerbread Stout cast finish was top 20 whiskey of the year last year from Whiskey Advocate, number 17, which was a huge accolade for that. So, and then Goose Islands obviously performs very well as well with some 90+ point scores there. So it speaks to the quality that we're putting into it, and we want to make sure we're putting our best foot forward with the brewery that we're partnering with. And yeah, that's really why we've aligned on that 5-year mark.
Okay.
I want to go back to something you mentioned. You mentioned different notes in each of the three different stouts that you've done so far. Can you expand on what kind of notes were each? I mean, I'm assuming with the gingerbread stout, there was like a nice gingerbread note, but
Hmm.
what about you said Boulevard? Was that a stout as well? And then,
Correct. Yeah.
cool. So what stout did you use with theirs and like what flavors and characteristics were you getting from their beer?
For sure. Yeah, that was a great question. So we went with so if you go starting with Goose Island, we did Bourbon County Stout with them. Obviously, you just get the big stout notes that you expect, right? Like big malty beer notes on the aroma, the kind of caramelized sugar, the chocolate.
Hmm.
It's beautiful. And it turned out super well. But the biggest thing for us is, we want to find ways to differentiate between the different product lines because a lot of stouts, as you're familiar with, know they add the adjuncts after the barrel aging process.
Hmm.
So it was important to find ways to kind of switch it up and keep it fresh. So with Boulevard, we did their proper pour stout, which is a double barrel finished stout for them. So they do it first in a bourbon barrel and then in an ex Cabernet barrel. And we
Oh,
took that ex Cabernet barrel from them and finished our 5-year whiskey in it. So
Whoa.
that one was, so unique, very wine forward. It was, you get those dark fruit, blackberry cobbler kind of notes on the palate, some plums, some baking spice. It was very very unique, very good. And then the gingerbread stout, as you mentioned, it's beautiful. That the gingerbread stout was a great win for us in the partnership because they actually do the ginger treatment in barrel. So rather than doing, it after, like traditionally most stouts are, they do it in barrel. And we were just able to get a lot of those beautiful ginger notes in there. You get some kind of like snickerdoodle cookie on the palate.
Ooh.
It's a really nice product. You can see why it got top 20 whiskey of the year for sure. And we took all three of these actually out to Great American Beer Festival this year, and the response was phenomenal. We were super excited.
You're breaking my heart.
That totally makes total sense, though, especially when they open it up to spirits and whatnot. That have it go to GABF is very smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
We are no longer friends because you teased me
Don
with that.
didn't get to go to GABF this
Oh no,
year,
I'm sorry,
so
Don. I didn't mean to open the wound there.
He's sad.
Let's say that you tasted this whiskey. Let's say a consumer tasted this whiskey. Would they be able to identify the beer without having been told?
Yes, you would definitely know it's a beer finish. This was the fun part of being at GABF, was just seeing the consumer response to it in real time. Because everybody gravitates towards, whether it's a certain brewery or a certain beer, with being gingerbread and being very unique. But everybody that tasted it, and the thing about it too, like you think gingerbread stout, and we had people that were like, if I drink this, I'm not going to like it. It's going to be overly sweet. It's going to be artificial gingerbread. And that's not the case at all. We're finishing in a barrel that previously held the beer. So we're not adding anything as far as flavor components go. So they are there. They're more subtle, I think, than people think. When it comes to when you're tasting it, you're expecting, this like big gingerbread bomb. That's not what's going to happen. It's a very approachable whiskey. And it's a great way to segue between the two. So I think they create great, beautiful whiskeys, and they're not overpowering by any means. And I think they're if folks that get to try them will definitely know it's a beer finish, but will be pleasantly surprised by how everything comes across.
How do you choose which breweries to work with? I mean, Hardywood's local-ish. It's also in Virginia, but how does this partnership come about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had done some same concept, but we called it Brewer's Batch when we first had started this, a few years back, and it was very much smaller scale, but always did really well. And we were, really curious, how can we take this to a larger audience, a larger reach? And so we kind of started leaning into it. A number of employees here have brewing backgrounds, just to get into kind of how our single malt production works. We're very much traditional single malt production processes. So everything we do is very much like a brewery. So when we're looking for people, we always are looking at breweries because, outside of the brew kettle, the whole hot side process is similar. So with that, a lot of our employees have connections. Myself, I came from Anheuser-Busch. I had great relationships with Goose Island, and I love Bourbon County Stout. That's always been just one of my all-time faves. So when we started to revisit, bringing this back to life and kind of scaling it to something bigger called the Brewers Coalition Series, that was one of the first places I reached out to, and they were super responsive to it. They were kind of on the cutting edge of bourbon barrel stouts, and we're kind of on the cutting edge of American single malt and getting it revamping this whole process of bringing barrels back to the distillery versus just sending barrels to breweries. And so they were excited to join up there. And then Boulevard, I'm from Kansas City originally, and a good friend of mine works over at Boulevard. And so and then from Hardywood, as you mentioned, local, our lead blender Amanda Beckwith and Dustin Castor, our distilling and packaging director, both have great relationships there. So it was more so like getting started. It was all relationships and how we can do this. And now that we have this foundation, we've seen it lead into multiple other conversations. And so we've developed breweries, conversations with breweries now, like the brewery out in California, North Coast Brewing, Four Hands. We have a release coming out with this coming year. So there's a lot of exciting projects that are in the works, and we're excited to release over the next, 2 to 3 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Let's go back to square one. Like you're talking about American single malt. Why did you, when you established the distillery, decide to make single malt, which at the time wasn't even a legally recognized style? So kind of a gamble, or why did you think this was the way to go?
Yeah. So I've been with the company for 5 years. So, all this is what I've learned from my time here. But back in 2015, the company was founded by Dr. George Moore, who tragically actually passed away during construction of the distillery. And he just had a great love for single malt, specifically, single malt scotches and how things were produced over there. And so his passion and what he wanted to do was to bring, create a single malt in the States that was just matched quality of how Scotch is made over in Scotland. So following the same production processes, we had the beautiful copper pot stills. And so that was really where the dream came from, was to make American single malt and make it at a high quality. And again, yeah, very, very, foresight about how, this is not a category. This is something we're going to push for and help kind of, bring to life. So you've seen the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission, which was a big, proponent of getting the ratification of the category. We've been a member of that and always just supporting, getting officially ratified and getting a true definition to it. So it's just been a passion of the family. We're independently owned. We're the largest independently owned single malt producer in the country, and it's all we've done, and it's our passion, and it's what we want to continue to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
When you were starting distilling many years ago, you were doing exactly what you just said. Now that you have been working with breweries, do you design a whiskey differently when you know it's going to go into a beer barrel? Or I guess before you would have been, do you design a whiskey differently if you know it's going to go into this former bourbon barrel versus that former bourbon barrel?
Yeah, great question. We have not. So everything we've laid down traditionally for the last, I would say, probably 9 years has been, same proprietary yeast blend, all, the same distillate going into barrel. What really, where we see the biggest difference is what cask type it gets placed into, is how we kind of divide up our line. So everything you're seeing that's being used from a 5-year ex-bourbon barrel is something that could go into one of our branded products. There's nothing really differentiating it whiskey side until it goes into that finishing barrel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is a beer podcast, all about beer. It's in the name. Our listeners do appreciate a good beer. What should they, like beer lovers new to whiskey, know and appreciate about whiskey? What do you think they would want to know about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I would just say, single malt's a great place to start. For somebody that loves beer, obviously you love those malty characteristics, those malt notes. We use a brewer's grade malt. We use a pale malt for all of our distillate. So I just think if you are really into beer, as I was, obviously being in the beer world before coming over to whiskey, I would encourage you to check out single malt. And these beer cask finishes could be a great segue into a starting point to then into some more traditional style single malts. But it's just, again, if you appreciate that malty note, that malty characteristic, the breadiness, I think you'll still find that in the distillate. And hopefully, these Brewers Coalition collabs are a fun way for people to kind of venture into the space.
Cool.
Okay, I have a final controversial question, and I know it's controversial, so I'm warning you.
Okay.
Neat, rocks, water, cocktail.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. To me personally, it's however you want it, however you enjoy it. That's how you should enjoy it. For me, I love rocks. I just like chilled beverages. I don't know what it is, but and that's just my personal preference. So I would encourage however you like it. Enjoy it the way you like it. But I have people, a lot of colleagues and stuff that enjoy it all various ways.
Okay. That was a very, very politically correct answer there. You can't offend anybody with that.
Yeah, that's.
You like
Brad,
what you like.
yes,
it is.
Yeah.
It's true. I never want to tell somebody that if you like it, that enjoy it that way. I mean, nobody can tell you differently, and that's who am I to say we're the way to drink it. So enjoy it the way you like it.
I mixed mine with RC Cola.
Ew, no, you don't.
I'm just kidding.
If you did, though, it would be fine.
Yes,
it would be fine. Yeah, no criticism here.
Brad, can you share social media handles so people can find out about all the cool releases your distillery is releasing?
For sure, yeah. So check us out, VA Distillery on Instagram at VA Distillery, as in Virginia. And then we have a page as well, Courage Whiskey with no E. That's our Courage and Conviction series. So both those pages are ours. American Custom Distilling is only on LinkedIn. That's more of kind of our private label bulk whiskey kind of side of things. But yeah, private label, things like that. So but yeah, check us out. Keep tabs on what's coming out. We have a lot of exciting Brewers Coalition releases coming in the next 2 to 3 years, and we're excited to get those announcements out.
Yeah, and I'm excited to taste them. So awesome. Thank you, Brad. This was great.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, we'll be at GABF again next year. So we'll make up
okay.
we'll make up for lost time.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, do you still only like
Mhm.
bourbon? Like now, there's all kinds of
No,
options.
all of those sound really. I just it's I people I don't think the thing that I don't think people realize is the like insane crossover between beer and whiskey.
I think it's kind of insane that that hasn't been explored more.
I
Like
know,
the
right?
idea of using Munich malt and, fermentation temperature. Like I've been into whiskey for a long time, and these are
Hmm.
things I've not heard much of before.
They get put in these like two silos, but they have so much in common. Um, I'm surprised, and I always like when companies fuse the two, using the X beer barrels or
Yeah,
using
full
like
circle.
yeah, it's just yeah, they're all it's nice when like one hand washes the other. I love to see I especially love when we do these episodes where there's like crossover into different drinks
Hmm.
and you get to see how similar they are.
Hmm.
I love it.
So I don't have any weddings coming up. So if any of our listeners want to invite me to a wedding so that I can do this wedding cake bourbon combination
I
that
mean,
Em
you
recommends.
can just do cake. Just go to the grocery store and buy a cake.
Oh,
Or invite Don to your wedding because I bet he's a great dancer.
I like to think I am. Actually, you know
Okay.
what? I'm not a great dancer. I'm a fun dancer. I guarantee you, people
Fair. There is a
will
huge difference
laugh.
between great
Yes.
and fun.
Think Elaine from
Oh, okay,
Seinfeld.
then yeah, people, invite this man to your I bet he'd get bring a great gift.
Like it would probably involve a liquid, yes.
There you go.
Everybody, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And to support this show and others, please visit allaboutbeer.com/support. That's not just corporate support. There's opportunities for individual support as well. And if you have questions for the experts, please email us podcast@allaboutbeer.com. That's also the email for feedback, suggestions, or to inquire about supporting this show through advertising. How can people reach out to you?
I am at Pints and Pails on Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky, and my website is www.pintsandpanels.com. What about you, Don?
If you would like to invite me to your wedding, I can be reached at the Dawn of Beer on X Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram. On Facebook, I'm at the Beer Dawn. Don't ask why that one's different. And people can drop me an email. I am Don at thedawnofbeer.com. And finally, here's another friendly reminder that we are actively looking for sponsors for this podcast for 2026. If you appreciate this show, please help us ensure we can continue bringing you great, insightful podcasts. Speaking of sponsors, here is a final word from our sponsor.
New Hampshire knows great beer, and the New Hampshire Brewers Association is here to lift it up. With nearly 100 craft breweries statewide, the NHBA promotes, educates, and advocates for the brewers who make the state one of my very favorite beer destinations. Grab the NH Beer Trail Passport and unlock exclusive perks at select member breweries from the Great North Woods to the Seacoast. Plan a weekend, find hidden gems, and support the local breweries that make New Hampshire beer special. Learn more at nhbrewers.org.
This program is brought to you by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, where trailblazing runs in the family. From crafting a movement with their iconic pale ale to taking the IPA haze craze nationwide with Hazy Little Thing, it's an adventurous spirit you can taste in every sip. Find your next favorite beer wherever fine beverages are sold. With new brews for every season, there's always something to discover. Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. Still family owned, operated, and argued over.
This show is produced by All About Beer. Visit allaboutbeer.com for articles, notes on this show and others, and to connect via the newsletter and social media. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Cake.